Yamantaka, Sanskrit, Tibetan, Shin Shed, is one of the most significant and fearsome deities in Tibetan Buddhism and is associated with the practice of overcoming death. His name, Yamantaka, means the conqueror of Yama, where Yama is the lord of death in Indian and Tibetan cosmology. The multi-armed, multi-headed form of Yamantaka, especially in his wrathful emanation, represents a profound symbol of the fierce determination to destroy ignorance and the cycle of death and rebirth, samsara. Yamantaka has its origins in early Indian Buddhism, where he was developed from the wrathful emanations of the Bodhisattva of compassion, Avalokiteshvara, Tibetan, Chenrezig. In the Mahayana and Vajrayana traditions, wrathful deities like Yamantaka are manifestations of compassion that take fierce forms to overcome hindrances and obstacles on the path to enlightenment. In Indian mythology, Yama is the god of death and the ruler of the underworld. Yamantaka arose in opposition to Yama, symbolizing the overcoming of the fear of death and the cycle of birth and death, samsara. His iconography and imagery emphasize the theme of triumph over death and ignorance, aligning him with esoteric Buddhist practice, especially those related to tantric rituals. Tibetan tradition. In Tibetan Buddhism, Yamantaka holds a particularly revered place, especially within the Gelug school. His primary role is to subdue death and obstacles to enlightenment. Tibetan sources link Yamantaka to fierce protection and as an embodiment of the wrathful manifestation of the Bodhisattva Manjushri, the deity of wisdom. Therefore, Yamantaka's fierceness is actually an expression of enlightened wisdom acting to destroy ignorance, attachment, and ego. Nepali connection. In the Kathmandu Valley of Nepal, Yamantaka is also widely worshipped, particularly among the newer Buddhists, who integrate both Vajrayana and Mahayana traditions. Nepali art and sculpture often depict Yamantaka with intricate detail, and he plays an important role in local tantric rituals, where he is seen as a powerful protector and a destroyer of negative forces. Nepal's proximity to Tibet and its rich tantric Buddhist traditions have resulted in Yamantaka becoming central to Buddhist artistic and ritual expressions in the country. In newer Buddhist rituals, Yamantaka appears in the form of Akshobhya and is often invoked during protective and exorcist ceremonies, especially to protect individuals from demonic or harmful influences. Iconography of MultiArmedYamantaka. Yamantaka's iconography is extraordinarily complex and highly symbolic, often reflecting multiple layers of meaning. His wrathful appearance, with numerous arms, heads, and legs, is intended to shock and awaken practitioners, symbolizing the fierceness needed to combat the ego and other delusions. The key aspects of Yamantaka's iconography. Multiple heads. Yamantaka is often depicted with 9 or 10 heads arranged in tiers. The central head is that of a bull, representing Yama, the god of death. Surrounding heads often include various animal and human faces, signifying Yamantaka's mastery over different aspects of existence, particularly the destructive forces of the ego and death. Multiple arms. Yamantaka can have up to 34 arms, with each hand holding a different weapon or symbol, representing his ability to conquer various obstacles. These arms often hold objects like swords, representing wisdom cutting through ignorance, skull cups, filled with blood, symbolizing the transformation of delusion, axes, and flaying knives. Each weapon signifies a specific way in which ignorance, attachment, and anger can be destroyed. Multiple legs. His multiple legs trample on various beings and objects. These beings often represent delusion, ignorance, and ego, which Yamantaka destroys. By standing on these symbols of ignorance, Yamantaka illustrates the overcoming of obstacles to enlightenment. Wrathful appearance. His face, often terrifying and fierce, with bulging eyes, bared fangs, and flames around his body, reflects his wrathful nature. However, these features also symbolize great compassion. The wrathful deity takes on this appearance to subdue the most stubborn aspects of the practitioner's mind, like attachment and fear of death. Garland of skulls. Yamantaka's body is often adorned with a garland of severed heads or skulls, which represent the transience of life and the illusory nature of the ego. The skulls also represent wisdom, as they signify the removal of egoistic attachment and fear of death. Consort. Sometimes Yamantaka is shown in Yabyam, father-mother, union with his consort. This symbolizes the union of wisdom and compassion in Tantric Buddhism. The consort represents the female principle, wisdom, while Yamantaka represents the male principle, compassion. Together, they embody the ultimate realization of enlightenment. Color. His body is usually depicted in dark blue or black, symbolizing the transcendence of all dualities, such as life and death, and the ultimate nature of emptiness, shunyata. Black is also the color associated with wrathful deities in Tibetan Buddhism, signifying the power to overcome the most difficult obstacles. Myths and stories surrounding Yamantaka. One of the most famous stories about Yamantaka in Tibetan and Indian Buddhism is his subjugation of Yama, the Lord of Death. According to the legend, Manjushri's wrathful manifestation Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, saw that all beings were suffering in the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, primarily due to their fear of death. To liberate them, he assumed the form of Yamantaka, a terrifying and wrathful figure, and went to the underworld to confront Yama himself. When Yama tried to terrify Manjushri, he was unsuccessful. Yamantaka, Manjushri's wrathful form, subjugated Yama, crushing him under his feet. By defeating Yama, Manjushri demonstrated that death itself is an illusion created by ignorance and attachment. The story symbolizes the ultimate victory over death by realizing the true nature of reality, which is beyond life and death. Tibetan and Nepali rituals involving Yamantaka. Yamantaka Drupchen. In Tibetan Buddhism, especially within the Gelug school, there are large-scale ceremonies called Drupchen, centered around Yamantaka. These ceremonies are meant to accumulate merit, purify negative karma, and protect against negative forces. Exorcisms and protection rituals. Both Tibetan and Nepali traditions invoke Yamantaka during rituals to ward off evil spirits or to exorcise harmful influences. His fearsome aspect is believed to protect practitioners from spiritual dangers and to aid in overcoming their inner obstacles. Charya dance. In Nepal, the Charya Nritya, or Tantric dance, sometimes features Yamantaka as a performer. In these ritual dances, practitioners embody the deity and enact his battle with death as a form of meditation and realization. Conclusion. Yamantaka is a complex and multifaceted deity, central to both Tibetan and Nepali Buddhist traditions. His fearsome form, with multiple arms, heads, and weapons, is not merely a symbol of wrath, but a representation of compassionate wisdom actively working to overcome ignorance, death, and the cycle of samsara. Through his stories and iconography, Yamantaka continues to inspire and guide practitioners along the path to enlightenment, illustrating the powerful and transformative nature of Vajrayana Buddhism.
More information about this beautiful sculpture of Yamantaka. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more spiritual insights. Thank you so much.